I'm really excited, honestly, to be here today. Todd and I are going to talk about link development and content and where it's been, where it's going, and I'm going to have him go ahead and kick off with the link development stuff.
So I'm kind of curious right off the bat. I know I asked you a few of you this yesterday during the roundtables, but I'm wondering how many of you either manage link development teams or have some sort of interaction in that department. Got a couple of hands. Okay, cool. Some good background there. All right, well, this is probably going to be maybe new to some degree for a lot of you, so hopefully there will be some good questions at the end. So we're going to take a look at kind of link development and see where we've been with that over the past 10 or 12 years or so. We're also going to look at where we're at now at this point from tactical and kind of strategic perspective. We're going to look at where we're going for the future, or at least where we see that kind of going to, as well as talk a little bit about content and what role that plays, look at some case studies, see what's working for us at this point, and then wrap it up with some pretty key takeaways for you guys. So early in 2000, when Google was really getting on the map and SEO was kind of getting rolling, it was pretty quick and easy for people to figure out how to game the system. It was, play around with some keywords and we can get this to happen. We can do this with some links and we get this to happen. And a lot of people started to realize, hey, this is a pretty easy system to manipulate to some degree. So we had a fair amount of system gaming. And from the link perspective, while PageRank didn't exactly come out at that point or wasn't an announced algorithmic factor early in 2000, the focus on quantity and essentially gaming how Google was using links was a pretty big thing. And we also found it pretty easy to scale link building. Since it was so basic, it wasn't hard to build a tool that could go out and automatically do a lot of the things that a human would do, but do it in a much more efficient fashion. We also, obviously the tactics were focused on the search engines, but there was a rise of the black hat SEO and people coming into the space because it was easy to game a system and not so much about marketing. And a lot of the tactics that came for link development and came out of this were purely focused on driving SEO and not so much on good marketing. So, and I'll talk through a few of these, but like with article distribution, there's kind of a good version of that and a bad version of that. And what we're talking about here is more people who would develop one type of article and spin it out to 1,000 different sites. And it might have been the exact same article with a couple of links in it, but essentially they were just taking one piece of content and dumping it everywhere. Pretty low value for users and people actually using the web. Forum signature links were pretty popular, where you could go in and essentially not even write a legitimate post. And again, if you have a tool that can do this, all the better. But you could put in a little link in the signature so you could have spam, 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 and then get a link from the signature. Blog commenting essentially worked the same way. Tool could be developed that would go out and dump a bunch of links across blogs, and the links would count. The comment doesn't really matter. Link farms started to pop up, which is essentially a big network of websites that are all cross-linking to each other. So it's kind of site A links to site B, and site A links to site C, site B links to site A, and site C. And you get this real weird web of sites that are essentially just all cross-linking to each other. Networks of owned domains is a similar idea where a webmaster would come and they'd essentially build out 1,000 domains or what have you, and they would all just link into one or cross-link to each other, but they would all be under control of one person. There were more general link networks like that, as well as tactics like profile link building, which some people might still do today, and mass directory submission, which we still do a little bit of directory submission, but what I'm talking about here is people who would essentially find any directory under the sun and just dump their stuff into it. Essentially what we got out of it, all this stuff where the internet was populated by a lot of people looking for money, as well as some people doing decent things and good things. But we kind of got a crappy web, and gaming was definitely the norm, or at least part of the system, and good companies were doing that as well as people who are just in there for a quick buck. We saw a lot of poor results come, which resulted in a poor user experience, and to some degree kind of makes Google look stupid. And there's a lot of users that ended up like this poor lady here who were just ready to shoot their computer and be done with it all. So we also saw, again, a lot of SEO-driven tactics. Instead of people who were there trying to market to individuals, it was more about, hey, how do we play with Google? How do we play with other search engines to get our stuff to pop up? And gaming the system was as fruitful as good marketing was. And in some ways, it was even more, or could be more, because it was more efficient, required less resources. And there's some different theories and speculations about why some of these larger companies might have played in that realm. But it's pretty interesting to think about the fact that they may have decided at one point that, hey, the gain we're going to get from playing kind of on the edge of what we can do with Google's guidelines from a link development standpoint is worth it. And we're going to go see what gains we can get and deal with whatever penalty comes afterward, and we'll just roll with it. And the other part of that might be maybe they looked at that and saw, to be really competitive, we have to do this kind of stuff. So we saw major brands start to play in those spaces. If any of you are familiar with JCPenney, obviously, and Overstock, and that brought SEO to sort of the general public in a much more open way than it ever had been as well. And then stuff got real, and this is a clip from one of my favorite movies, Malibu's Most Wanted. I don't know if anyone's seen that. But yeah. So Google responded and got madder than they already were. And now we're starting to see new signals being introduced as they started to understand, hey, this link graph is great, and we're getting a lot of useful information out of it, but at the same time, it's a little hard to control. So what else can we do, and what else would help advance search? And this isn't just Google, other search engines, Bing, I guess, playing with this. And they all went after Twitter data. They all went after Facebook data. Google got slapped and didn't get any of it after a while. And they did what any good company that has lots of money would do. They built their own social profile system and told people to go use it. So we're seeing them use that, and other search engines. Obviously, Bing just announced or released the thing with Facebook where you can ask questions of people who are in your network and stuff like that. So social is becoming a bigger and bigger factor, and we believe being used to help balance problems with the link graph as far as Google understanding what's quality and how to rank things. There's also the concept of authorship, which we're exploring very much now, but it's essentially the idea that there's someone in a space who might be more of an authority than someone else. So their voice carries weight. For instance, in the SEO realm, if I tweet something, it's not as important as if Adam Audette references you or someone like that. And yeah, this is kind of a quick timeline of some of the updates we've seen. And a couple of the important ones here are the May Day one, which was interesting as it sort of signaled what was going to come later with Panda. And it touched, I believe, approximately 3% of search queries and search results. And it was more aimed at content and quality and long tail focused. And then obviously we have some of the newer stuff with Penguin and the latest continuing rolling updates of Panda as well. Specifically from the link dev standpoint, in 2004, Brandy was released, which was about anchor text relevance. In 2005, Google brought out the nofollow attribute, which fought a lot of link spam, such as the stuff that was going on in blog comments, the stuff that was going on in forums. And it made it a little easier for Google to allow webmasters to say, hey, I don't know if this stuff is real great, and kind of control some of that information. Jagger was low quality links, reciprocal linking stuff. And then there's kind of this big gap where a lot of people were still gaming the system and playing around. And then in 2010, May Day comes along, and we start to see social signals introduced, which is still a bit up in the air as to what effect they're exactly having, but we're getting better and better understanding that. And then in 2011, Panda, obviously, which is an interesting thing to note, because essentially it showed, me at least, I'll share my personal feelings on it, that sometimes Google's not afraid to drop more of an atom bomb on something and use less of a precise measurement, because there was a lot of stuff that was wiped out, but there was also a lot of collateral damage from it. And if that stuff started to happen on the link development side, it would be really interesting to see what they were able to hit, but also what other link development tactics or signals might sort of be affected as a result. And then 2012, Penguin, the newest one, over-optimization, including some anchor text and keyword stuffing and stuff like that. Really key point here is that this will not stop. If you get nothing else from this initial section, understand that this is Google's goal, and they're they're going to try to clean this up as much as they can. So where are we now? Your link profile, to some degree, is dying. And it's happening naturally because of web decay. Either webmasters don't update their sites, or they don't renew the domain, and so the pages just go away. Businesses come and go, so stuff is taken down. But there's also a factor to this that Google wants it to kind of go away. If you've had a site for a long period of time, it's pretty much impossible to avoid having some spam and some kind of not so great links in there in your profile. But if you've been around for a really long time and you've engaged in anything that's a little shady, then Google's really after that, and you might get hurt down the road if you haven't already been hurt, as Google takes a big whack out of your link profile and suddenly your rankings drop because you don't have the equity that you did. And there's also this interesting concept that sites that may have looked like quality but had participated in spammy practices in the past, as Google attacks those and those links start to drop off, the site that was linking to you that you thought was great because it had good content and looked like it had some page rank or whatever else you might look at, is suddenly not going to pass equity anymore. And your links are going to be a little lower, a little weaker as a result of that, even if the site seemed like a good one. We're also watching as old link tactics are going away. Again, profile link building, forum link building beyond the signature part, but actually participating, which we still do to some degree as a natural part of kind of our promotional efforts and doing some basic link development. But the fact is that's getting harder and harder to do because it has been spammed so much. So more no-follow links in there, more people who are working hard to find people who are just in there doing link building and stuff like that. And the same thing is true with general site outreach, where you could before contact a webmaster via email, start a conversation, and now you're lucky, if the guy even talks to you, and you're sort of lucky if he writes you back with a negative email, because at least you got a response. And heavy-handed anchor text usage, good thing to point out, that's becoming more and more important to avoid, as it's no longer the heavy hammer or silver bullet that kind of got you a ranking when you were looking for it. And there's also a bit of a secret fight with Google that a lot of people don't know they're even participating in. But when you choose to focus on parts of link development, such as, what can I do today? What can I do to hit this specific quantity or goal? You're really putting yourself a bit at odds, because good link development really does take time often. And it becomes not even about so much link development, but about content and some of those other things, as we'll talk about later. But it's really important to avoid focusing on an SEO short-term play. And much better if you focus on SEO as something that if you put the time into it and you invest into it, it can build more momentum, and that can give you more and more power moving forward, like a turbocharger does. And eventually tactical link building will die either by Google's hand or by natural decay, and that's part of what I talked about, but also people just not listening to you anymore when you try to do your outreach and make your connections. So what are we looking at for the future, and does it look more like the past? And the fact is, it does. And it's kind of odd, because the way that Google came around and the way that SEO was sort of built initially is that it was about playing a video game almost to some degree, and you could play within that system and figure out how to bend the rules, and you could get results. And that's still true today. But the fact is, if you want long-term sustainable success, it's about building relationships, it's about figuring out how to get in the news, and it's about creating great content, because that's really core to both of those things. And otherwise, spam is going to end up owning your soul, because the middle stuff is going to become really, really inefficient. The things that might be more manual-based but are still considered, white hat or within Google's guidelines, they'll work, but they become more and more inefficient. So you're either going to go really short-term and be spammy, or you're going to start to invest in long-term stuff that's actually going to be sustainable and attract links and help you do all those good things. And this is a quick case study that we had that touches on social and a little bit of PR, and it just gives an example of how it's really important to have these things working together to get success. And we can see that a great brand that put together a really unique idea, piece of content over a 16-day period in the holidays, got a lot of great results from it. A lot of good links came in. They were able to develop new connections out of it through the efforts, new Facebook fans. They even boosted some revenue from Facebook, and overall, it resulted in more revenue from natural search traffic as well. So let's let Meg talk some more about social.
December 2010, social came onto the scene. Signals were pointing to social. It was the beginning of personalization for Google. Mark Zuckerberg put this quote out, and it kind of does, it really kind of hits home, because community is out there, and trying to figure out how to tap into your community is sort of the key to social media, and how we can utilize it for social and SEO we'll talk about today. I won't talk about a lot of the stuff. There was a great talk yesterday about social media and listening and everything, but really, you know, there's key points when we're talking social that we have to keep in mind. We have to be active. You have to be engaged with your audience. You need to be building meaningful content to provide to your social users so they have a reason to engage with you. It should support your other marketing channels, and I want to talk a lot about that today, honestly. And then it should be connecting with authorities in the industry. Again, we talked a lot about this yesterday. Mike Moran, you had a great presentation on this yesterday and talking about hitting those influencers. And it just should encourage interaction with your community, of your content, of anything you may be sharing with them. So obviously, social media can help us a lot with SEO. It helps us integrate our other marketing channels and targets into our SEO campaign. It helps us build our link development through social media, because a lot of the times those people we're working with on the social media front are going to be our contacts for our link development front. They're who you have the relationships. They're the people who are going to help you get your content out and advocate for you. It also helps with your brand, and we talk brand, and everybody cringes when you mention brand, but I'm going to talk brand today, because you know what, your brand's important, and it's important for us for SEO, it's important for us for link development and social. And then you can't go without saying contents, promotions, and strategic partnerships, because those are all your areas for new opportunity, for new content, and really just, again, trying to connect with more people. And the more people you can utilize, more contacts, partners, other people in your network, sites you may have that can help leverage within your community, the better off, the stronger I think your social media campaign will be. Content. So obviously we can't talk link development, we can't talk social without hitting on content. And content is, I hate the phrase, content is king. It's been around since the 90s, everybody says it, but it's true. The problem is that someplace along the line, somebody kind of started just slapping their logos on things that didn't make sense, things that didn't create value or weren't relevant for the brand, because they just thought, let's more content, more content. But it's not that different than traditional advertising. Who in here, does anybody in here have a background in, traditional advertising, display? Nobody? I got one. It's not that different. This has been around forever, and you would never see a company go out and put, something in direct mail that did not, scream for the brand, represent the brand. You would never see somebody go into a print magazine and put an ad in a print magazine that did not represent what their brand is and provide valuable content for that user. So what should SEO content be? It should help your users. It's the same old mantra we've been saying for the past 2 days. SEO is about helping users. Your content should also help your users. It should be improving your keyword rankings. For crying out loud, we're SEOs. We should be improving our rankings. Somewhere along the lines, this content should be helping with our rankings to help with our organic search traffic and revenue. And it should represent your brand voice. Your brand voice is important for you, who you are as a company, and it's also going to help with all of your other channels. So how does content support SEO? It influences your key social and linking metrics. It helps support your link development efforts. I mean, you've got contacts out there. You're putting content out via that. And it allows you to utilize those channels to improve signals to the site, because ultimately these three first bullets it's all about the signal. So whenever we're talking about, whether we're talking about yesterday, pagination, canonicals to a URL, this is no different. This is pointing signals in the right direction, off-page signals from social and off-page link development. And then it goes to the internal too. So once you get to the site, you're building off-page links. Can we spread the link equity through your site to give love? And it doesn't always, it's odd. How do you get links for certain pieces of content and then give it to the pages that you're trying to give the love to and build rankings for? What is SEO content? So I have a question for everybody. Does anybody in here, does anybody here, who writes content for your site first? Cool. And who in here is talking to maybe the people who are writing the content on your sites? Cool. And are they typically merchandising teams? That's sort of that's typically what we see is it's merchandising teams and a lot of the content strategists and everybody are putting the content up. So I think the key is to understand is where they come into play. I mean, content is everything on the site. If it's crawlable and viewable, it has some relevancy to SEO. I mean, we're talking videos, images. This is all content for a site that could be optimized, improved, and be shared on social channels as well as used for link development efforts. So how do you balance brand and SEO content? So this is where I always find it interesting. I mean, how many of you guys do not have content, say, on a category sort page? You guys all have content on your category sort pages? No? I'm like, seriously, I've not seen that across the board that much. I'm like, okay. Because ultimately, how you get it on there and you balance a brand with your SEO content. You know, this is online shoes. Online shoes, they're a shoe company. You would naturally imagine they're going to write content about shoes. Here's just a good example of a piece of content for online shoes. It's not that glamorous, but it's relevant to who they are. And what you'll see there is there's a link over to the Saucony page for their shoes, and that was actually something they were built. So we can actually take something like this and go out and build links into it and help with that brand link. Here's another example. So can anybody tell me what you think of when you think of drugstore, like just from a brand standpoint? If you were thinking of drugstore, what would you think of from a brand? Prescriptions? Anything else? Health, well-being, vitamins, things like that. Obviously, they want to stay with the brand. They're not going to go start building content about shoes. So one of the things we did for them is we built content. We built a content portal for them regarding, it's a health and wellness portal that has relevant content for things that they have on their site and builds links into their vitamins and other areas of the site. Very, very brand-oriented users. It's very useful to the users, and we're able to send all of these out through social media channels every time we build a new piece of content within here, as well as build links into it. What about REI? I mean, does anybody what do you think of? I mean, just from a brand standpoint, what does anybody think of when they think of REI? Outdoors, mountains, right? You know, they kept their brand intact, but they got the content on the page. That is crawlable content, so it's not in an image. It's in the image, but it's crawlable. It's not hidden. They were able to accomplish that brand balance on their page and still get relevant, really good content that actually says a lot about who they are on their page. This is my favorite. This is my favorite. I mean, we think Under Armour, you know, what is it? Rock this house or protect this house. That's their logo. You know, they have a brand, and we're talking a strong brand. We all know Under Armour. They are today's athlete. They're hardcore. They're crazy. So what do you expect to see when you get there? A hardcore athlete, of course. And yes, again, crawlable content within here, as well as internal links that are well optimized to the areas of the site. Again, this is a category type page, and it is it's content, and it's valuable to them, and it's brand worthy, and they are not compromising their brand, and they're creating a really beautiful user experience for their users. So obviously we have content. A lot of these pieces of content you saw here, you know, some were category pages, some are more of the articles, the blogs. The question I always get is, okay, so if we're pushing this content, you know, how am I getting my rankings increased over here for vitamins? How does that work? Because, you know, I'm not building lots and lots of links into necessarily a vitamins category page because that's really hard to do. I mean, really, seriously, try to go out and get a bunch of links to a category page and people are going to laugh at you. You're going to spend a lot of wasted time. But if you can create the right link flow within your site, you can try to maximize your internal linking. So what you don't want to do is create real depth. So ultimately, you know, search engines have to go into your site and they have to crawl certain levels to get there. So if you have a subcategory page that's 5 or 6 levels deep, how do we lift it? How can we get the search engine to maybe crawl it a little more quickly or pull it up in the crawl? And in order to do that, we have to improve our internal linking. And one of the ways we can do it is really just we can hit those promotional pages, those content pages, make sure that they're relevant about what we're trying to push, build the link within there, but push the page that should be pushed, that people want to see, that people are willing to link to or share via social channels. And then your link equity will flow over to it. Todd was talking about anchor text. So we vary up the anchor text. So if we're going to off pages and we're varying up the anchor text to our target page that we're building the links into, it ultimately will build links into our target pages. So it definitely, it works, it's very effective, and it's really the way in order to get links into your site, into areas of content, and spread it out to where you want it to grow. That's how you're gonna have to do it. So let's talk about, I'm just gonna show you guys an example of somebody who's done this and done it well. We did we did it well. Todd did it well. For National Geographic. So National Geographic had a really awesome photo contest that they were gonna put out for the Student Expeditions program. I think their top prize was a 12-day London photography workshop for a student who submitted the best photo. They had a couple giveaway prizes as well. And you know, we built the page out, we got it all worked out, and they had some subpages, and we spread the word for starters. We made sure that that page had the ability to spread the word too. All the social pieces were on that page. And so we also built a page on Facebook. We went over there and we did, you know, some promotions around Facebook and managed the Facebook campaign for them. And it was very interactive. So we just kept putting, you know, we were posting what different photos were winners. We basically posted all along the way. We did the announcements on there. We posted updates. We showed photos of people that they've been submitting, as well as sort of threw in other engagement opportunities, just because we didn't want to just bombard them with, obviously, just this one contest. We wanted to keep the variation out there. We hit PR. Who in here is talking to your PR departments? PR is the best tool we have for link development. It is, you can get quality links from other sites using, obviously, quality PR material. We use their partners, their existing assets. They have partners that we can go get links on, so we used them. You know, we went to Nat Geo Kids and had them post something over there. We went to bloggers, and we had bloggers. I mean, it was a very interesting topic. We had bloggers, just the same thing, not the same content. We had them, you know, write their own sort of announcements about the contest and post it on their sites. So what made this easy? Brand, of course, you know, it's not Geo, come on, it's brand. But they also had the foundation there. They had laid the path, they already had the connections, they've been working their social channels, they've been active on their social channels, they're engaged. We had blogger targets, lists, people they've known and worked with, so it made it kind of easy. We'd been working, we've been laying the foundation for a while now to do this. And we were successful. You know, Facebook traffic increased by 89%. The blogger traffic increased by almost 2,000% over that time. And the organic traffic to the domain increased 16%. Overall organic traffic for that one promotion created that kind of a lift. So what are we seeing that's really working? I mean, some people are doing it right, and some people are really struggling to figure out what's working. Who's talking to all of the different channels in their groups? The PR channels, the social channels. Are you guys pulling these people together and trying to get them on your side, getting buy-in from them because they need to be on your side in order to get the support you want and get your job done? Communication, that's the one thing I'm seeing across the board. When people are successful, PR, social, marketing, and SEO are talking. They know where they play into each other's part. They're utilizing each other. They're using, we get marketing plans from companies so that we can figure out how to promote within their marketing plans already. You don't need to create a separate channel out here. We all should be working together. We are one of your marketing channels. Your assets are being leveraged. Who in here is doing like charities or philanthropic work? Is anybody in here doing anything like that? You should be using it. I mean, use your assets if you're already doing it. I can't tell you how many times I sit down with companies and they are telling me these cool stories about, I'll give you an Under Armour example. They told me this great story about how they were going out and they were fitting, they went to the hospital with a bunch of their equipment and started to fit amputees. Nobody knows this. They never did anything with it, but I hate to say it, it would have been a great PR opportunity for them to spread what they're doing with their group. Partnerships, promotions, and giveaways are dominating because it gives users, it entices, it pulls them in, all the obvious reason that we've been doing it for God only knows how many years now, getting people coupons and everything else. It works. It pulls people in, it gets users engaged, and they're excited about it. Link development and SEO education is spreading throughout companies, and it's becoming critical because, Adam said it yesterday, if you don't get that C-level buy-in, it is an uphill battle all the way. And if you can start to get more buy-in from more parties around your company, it becomes exciting for everybody. Everybody gets sort of that, wow, that's cool. I always say that if you can convince a developer that they're going to actually impact revenue and show them how they might be able to impact the revenue, you actually maybe get a developer on your side because they don't usually get to play that game of, oh, I get to increase revenue? Cool, I'm not the sales, but I can do that. you'll start to get buy-in. So the more that they can understand it, I think the more that they tend to get excited about it as well. And partners are true partners. And what I mean by this is, you know, everybody's here to help each other. We're trying to get to the same goal, but you see so many people go in as adversaries versus trusting partners, and everybody's, you know, more willing to, how am I trying to say this? They're more willing to, the people who are doing it right are very accepting. They're treating us like their left arm or right arm or whatever you want to call it. We are part of their team. We are helping them be better at their job. We're helping their teams be better at their job, and we're making them look good, and that's our objective, trying to increase the revenue. So partners are really true partners for these people. So tactical takeaway, what did we really learn? I mean, what is the key takeaways from what Todd went over today? I mean, there's a lot of correlation between links, social content, what your marketing team is doing, everything. So develop useful, relevant, meaningful content for your users, not junk. Don't just go slam your logo on something that somebody sent you because it's cheap content coming from them or it's just an easy way to generate it. You're better off spending more money or even the same amount of money on less content of somebody who's doing it right and doing it well than spending lots of money on lots of content. Build relationships. You have Twitter, you have Facebook, you reach out to these people, ask them, hey, you know what, I have this piece of content coming down the road sometime. Would you guys be willing to post it, blog about it? Start talking to them. Get somebody to start building these and keep a database of these people who might be able to engage with you and help you spread the word when the time comes. Don't forget to leverage your partners and your other brands. If you've got other brands out there or you've got sister companies, use them for your links. Ask them, get links on each other's site. Do that. There's a lot of merit in it. Focus on user-driven tactics. It is absolutely still the ultimate in SEO. Everything's going to be user-driven in the future. So whether it's link development, social, SEO, content, it's got to be about the user, because if not, it's just going to start to haunt you because they will keep coming down with their iron fist. And communicate with the key players. I'm like a broken record these days. We have some internal SEOs who are having sack lunches with key players in their company, whether it's merchandising teams or content teams or creative teams. They have monthly sack lunches where they pull these people together and they just do quick education sessions. Those are really effective and they're working for these companies. I'm not going to understate it at all. I mean, it's amazing how much communication can help with this process and start to tap into different departments such as your PR department. That's what I got. Any questions? Yes, have they come, I'll just repeat the question. So she just asked if they've come to us with the experience of negative link building. Absolutely. That's a great question. We have, and Todd, you can come up here too, because you encounter this a lot more than I do now.
Yeah.
But yes, we do. We actually have a lot of clients that will have to go and clean up their link profile, take down links, adjust the anchor text. We get a lot of clients who come up with spammy anchor text, and I would love for you to talk about what we typically do with that.
Yeah, it's a pretty big challenge. We talked about this a little bit during the roundtable yesterday, and when we run into that, usually our first piece of information or recommendation is to make a list of the sites that you think are doing it, and go ahead and give a shot at contacting them and seeing if they'll take stuff down. That's kind of a snowball's chance in hell that it's going to happen, but every once in a while you get lucky. Beyond that, if they're pointing to pages that you no longer need, sometimes we'll just take those pages down. We've done that before. But we try to start a conversation with Google too and say, hey, we see this, we know it's happening. Is there anything we can do? Do you have any guidance? And just at least let them know that you're aware and you're trying to fix the problem.
That's a good point. I forgot about that part. Cool, and that brings up another interesting point. We, look at your link profile. I didn't even think about that until you mentioned that. Look at your link profile. Take some time to figure out where you're getting links from, what it looks like. Is it spam maybe? Did you inherit something that somebody else maybe did? Look at it, because one of the things you don't want is, we were talking about this a lot with Penguin and Panda and all of them, is it's the over-optimized anchor text, and we really need to make sure it's varied and healthy. Another thing to do is to look at where it's going, where you have links going and what that anchor text is, and how you can adjust it and make it more defined to your right signals. You're pointing to the right page. So if you're selling shoes, it's pointing to the shoes page, not the shirt page. Just make sure that you have right relevancy and you're really using your keyword targets within your off-page link development efforts as well.
And we've seen also with some of that negative stuff where companies have gone and acquired other companies and they redirect their sites into them without really looking at some of that stuff. And sometimes you can run a lot of junk in there without exactly realizing what you're doing. So something else we tend to look at or ask about if we see a lot of stuff like that.
Yes.
On the press release part of it, how much are those links that you end up getting to follow?
A lot of them, especially with the higher end press releases, and which we're finding you had a great answer. We were talking about this last night.
Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, and certainly on the lower tier, we get more followed links. What we found is that the pages that those links come on often don't get cached by Google, so it's kind of like, okay, that's not great. And they're not really providing a lot of value for users anyway, because you might put out something for National Geographic and a finance site picks it up, and it's kind of like, okay, that's real great. What we're finding is with the higher networks, where you actually get on some pretty legitimate news sites, the distribution lists, there are more no followed links. But for us, we'd much rather see 10, 20, or 30 decent followed links come in, even if it costs $400 or $500 compared to like the 200 and getting 100 cheap links that may or may not get indexed. So it's definitely a mixed bag, and it tends to vary by what the press release is about and who the brand is too.
Yeah, that's true.
Can you go over or explain what you mean by over-optimized anchor text? I mean, obviously, that's what we're supposed to do.
I know.
How are we defining over-optimized?
You want to define? I'm just
Sure.
throwing it at you.
So there's no hard and fast rule at this point about a percentage, but obviously what we did in the past was you'd have your page about Nike shoes, and you wanted it to rank for Nike shoes or Nike running shoes. So you'd go out and build your links, and you'd use that exact phrase over and over and over again. And that was pretty much with some decent links. If you had a strong enough domain, you were going to be good to go. Like, you'd get a decent ranking. And now what we're seeing is that there's more and more stuff that's ranking that has really varied anchor text. So there's a lot more partial match, where it might be Nike running shoes for women or something like that, or Nike running shoes for outdoor trail running.
Yeah.
So longer variations, more mixed up, a little bit of exact match still. And honestly, we've taken this as sort of a sign to think a little less scientifically about it and about what that ratio is, and be even more natural, which is great, because it's a lot harder to go and ask or work on a connection and say, okay, I want you to link to this page, I want you to use this anchor text, and it needs to be surrounded by content. I mean, it gets kind of ridiculous. And now if you can just say, hey, we're running this promotion, it's about this product, and you can take that natural link, it's pretty good to go.
Yeah.
And you might find that at some point you need a little bit of exact match or do a little tweaking, but we don't really focus on that too much at this point.
Exactly. Do you think that there's a way to say that there's too much?
I do it by gut feel,
Yeah.
so it's a little hard.
I'd agree.
We look at your competition for starters. Like, if there's a similar page that's ranking #1, we'll go check and see how much exact match anchor text they have, or what they're doing with their anchor text if we're curious about it. Other than that, I mean, once you kind of get into that, you can sort of get the feel and go, hey, this doesn't look natural. Like, the title of the page is this, the page is about this, and yes, this phrase is used on the page at one point, but I'm not really sure if that warrants like 90 links coming into it with this exact phrase, where if someone links naturally, it's more likely they go grab the H1 tag, or they write a longer kind of anchor text thing that flows into their content, or they might use the actual like meta title of the page.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you suggest that you do with URLs? For example, if we bought a company and they had 100 URLs, and we have maybe 500 URLs that to relate, to categories that we have. What's the best use of those?
Okay, so let me make sure I'm understanding the question correctly. If you go out and you buy or you acquired a different company or a website or something like that, and they've got 100 pages, how would you mold that into your website, or what is the best thing to do with it?
Well, so they own, we'll just say woodcraft.com.
Okay.
Woodcraft.com, and we also have powertools.com or scrollshop.com. We have all these other URLs. At this point, the pages within
this a lot.
Hmm.
Well, for starters, I'd probably say it depends. I
Yeah.
would probably look at the, and I hate to say it depends, Matt, he left. It depends on the strength of the other sites partially. So, you know, how well are they independently working? If they're, oh, there's really no good practice in that. I see what you're saying. There really is not a great practice in that. That's more sort of like old domain hogging and just trying to make sure that other people didn't get it. That exact match domain URL piece, if you've got power tools, for example, on your site, I mean, it's nice to have it and maybe somebody else can't get the URL, but it's, I mean, you just want to 301 it back to your site at that point. You know, it's okay to acquire a URL, but if you're going to do it, just 301 it to your site.
Yeah, so if you had Power Tools and a Power Tools section on another site, you just 301
301 it to that.
if there's nothing else there.
Yeah. That's really, there's really not any great benefit in owning a lot of domains at this point in time, because really you want to concentrate on your one domain, the one URL, get the focus there, put the signals in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of wasted efforts. We've seen clients buy 2,000 and 3,000 domains and you don't know why. You keep asking, well, why are you guys spending all this money on all these domains? It just doesn't even make sense. You have a domain, you have a site, we're working with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we actually see that a lot, honestly. Any other questions? Wow, well, we got questions though. Thank you. Are we early?
Yeah, we still got a few more minutes. If
Yeah,
anybody
sure.
else-
Oh, good.
Yeah.
If I wanted to look at my link profile, how would you recommend going about using it?
Great question.
That is a great question. Well, you do it. It's
Sure.
what you do every day.
Yeah, okay. So there's two common tools that we use. We use Open Site Explorer from SEO Moz, and that requires to get as much data as they're going to give you. Actually, that's not exactly true. You can get API access and you can get some more, which costs a little bit more, but it's usually, I believe, $100 a month for kind of their basic pro subscription, which will let you pull a lot of stuff down. The other one we use is Majestic SEO, and Majestic has a fresher and larger database. You're going to get a lot of stuff mixed in with that, and they divide it out based on what they call historical and what they call fresh. So historical is going to give you everything they've ever crawled that's been pointing to your site. A lot of that stuff might already be dead and gone, but it will give you some information. For instance, if you're trying to clean up your backlink profile or understand maybe why you might be getting penalized, that's a good direction to go.
Yeah.
We like Open Site Explorer because it tends to grab a lot of the highest quality stuff and show that to you, and they have a lot of other really helpful metrics that we use on a daily basis for understanding what's going on with the backlink profile. But those are pretty much the two tools we use.
Yeah.
We're looking at our profile. What are the things we should look at trying to remove our link from, and what sites are out there?
Like domain authority. I mean, you want to look at the domain authority, right?
You're asking about cleaning up your backlink profile, like
How
if
do they evaluate? How do they evaluate what my profile looks like?
there's something junky, yeah.
Yeah.
So I would check your domain authority, which is an Open Site Explorer SEO Moz metric, and do a little bit of competitive comparison and see if you're kind of in line with the competitors. In general, I might pull down like a full list of your backlinks and start to look for some keywords that would signal you're getting a lot of links from junky places like porn sites, Viagra, anything that seems weird or off topic. And unless you have a huge site, it's actually relatively easy to pull a pretty good chunk of backlinks and kind of scroll through and go, hey, this domain looks really weird and I've got 100 links from there. It doesn't match up with what we do. I don't know why they're there. And kind of do a little more investigation that way and see what you've got going on.
Yeah, and do some sorting. I mean, once you get a download, that's what we do a lot. We do sorting. We sort by URL, see how many links we have coming into certain URLs. We sort by the keywords, how many keywords do we have coming in, and just start doing that gut check. And it doesn't look too bad in one area. Are they all coming from one site? If some site jumps out at you that looks like it's a bad site, it probably is. Look at it. Just actually, sometimes you have to just manually go to some of the sites and figure out what the link is, and that'll start to flag you.
Yeah, and I'll say we don't spend a lot of time on that. It's usually only if there appears to be some sort of a problem. Like you were ranking for a long time for stuff and then suddenly you dropped off and you can't come back.
Yeah.
And we might go, okay, well, what got tweaked that's suddenly affecting backlinks coming into your site or something like that?
It can be really effective to do it at a keyword SERP level too. So if you're really trying to investigate, okay, I need to push my rankings for this keyword, starting to do that competitive analysis and that backlink profile for that keyword can be really a fascinating thing as well. Any other questions? I wouldn't do it. It's against my philosophy in general. I personally prefer focusing on myself, making my business really good or my client's business good, and let the competitors do what ugly things they're going to do on their own. And that would be mean.
I will say, if you want to talk about it more, Ben Goodsell, who's around here somewhere, is pretty into that
yes,
stuff.
and
So.
Ben and I debated about it a lot. He's like, come on, let us.
Yeah. I think, just theoretically, kind of what we've seen is it's more of a combination of stuff, like getting good links removed that are going into a site, as well as sending bad links in. And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.